Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Was There Last Night, because as videos are showing, I was there last night. I didn't just steal those from the internet. Plus, I have a ticket to prove it. Eventually I'm going to run into one where I just have a digital ticket. A lot of them are doing that. I actually prefer the digital tickets, but whatever. So last night at Red Rocks Amphitheatre in Morrison, Colorado, I saw Lamb of God, Clutch, and Corrosion of Conformity. So I'm going to, without further ado, just going to jump right into my review of the concert from last night. So, opener last night was Corrosion of Conformity. Now, what was cool about this tour is that you have, three bands who are somewhat different. You got Corrosion of Conformity, who's, good hard rock, type of kind of grunge metal type of band, similar to like Alice in Chains and all that, which, they've been around for a long time. They've gone through a lot of, iterations and things like that. So it was good to see them back. I guess this is the first time they've done Red Rocks since 92 or 93, so it's been a while since they've done, a show in Colorado at one of the most beautiful venues there is. Now, I haven't really been listening to a lot of like newer Corrosion of Conformity, so I don't know, all their stuff. I know some of their hits from, way back. Certainly some of the stuff from like the early 2000s, plus, their big hits from the 90s, like, Albatross and Clean My Wounds. So those are a few that I like kind of knew. So, just like, they basically opened up, they came right out. There really wasn't a lot of like build up. They just kind of came out and like, here we are, we're COC, let's get to it. So they started out with Bottom Feeder, which is a pretty awesome shot. It was a good way to kind of get the crowd, motivated, get them pumped. What I like about Corrosion of Conformity is also one of those things that annoys me about some bands is, they can go into some more like jammy type of, elements. And I mean, talk about jam band, you got Clutch, who is coming up second after these guys. But, they definitely did a few of those, let some of the, took some of the guitar solos a little bit, did some bass solos, guitar solos. So they definitely were just like right out there, good classic kind of, COC that, we come to know and love. And it was good to see the lineup. They haven't played with this lineup in a while too, but definitely having, Pepper Keenan back in, the band, out there, leading the way. A couple other ones that they played that were really good. 7 Days, that was a lot of fun. The Door, Vote with a Bullet. I know everyone just enjoyed the hell out of Vote with a Bullet. Albatross, like I said, so they did play, a couple of these, like more well-known hits. And when they ended with Clean My Wounds, and they definitely did, like an extended guitar solo for that, which is pretty awesome, just to kind of, get people ready for Clutch, but also to do like, a proper send-off of like, here we go, here's, this is the classic Corrosion of Conformity that people remember. This is what people love. And just to come, kind of come out there, rock out, get the crowd into it. Thought they did a really good job. I'm not the biggest COC fan. I mean, it's not that I don't like them. It's just I've never listened to them, with a lot of, I haven't listened to them a ton. So a lot of this stuff is, just kind of like, yeah, I remember that song. I remember listening to that way, way back. but it was still really cool to see them. I've never seen them live, and I think they put on a pretty kick-ass show and definitely got everybody ready for Clutch. And what was interesting about COC was they definitely showed that they haven't played together in a while, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because one of the things I love about live music is you can sometimes catch, the mistakes. You can catch some of like the timing issues, the coordination, mistakes. When you can hear that, it's actually kind of reassuring because then this is real. This is not just somebody on a laptop playing a tape. This is somebody actually up there playing. This is a band playing, which is why I always talk about why I love rock and metal so much, is because it's it requires so much coordination and all that. And COC last night definitely had some missteps, but I'm not going to hold that against them because it sounded awesome. Their whole set sounded awesome, and having those missteps is not a bad thing because it reminds everybody this is real. We're here. This is us actually playing these instruments, which you can't say about some other bands when they're so afraid to make a mistake live that they'll put everything on tape, and the tape will catch anything that they don't anything that they miss during the set. So definitely happy that COC did that. So so here's a clip from that set of COC during the Clean My Wounds, because I mean that's the song that I know the best, and so of course that's the video I'm going to take. So here's some from Clean My Wounds. Pretty awesome. So once COC was done, then came Clutch. And Clutch is one of those bands that, kind of like Iron Maiden, that have been around for so long and have such an awesome and diverse, discography and just so much music that they can pull from. Their catalog is just, it's epic. And I love Clutch way too much to necessarily, go to a Clutch show and walk away feeling like I got enough, because Clutch could play for 4 straight hours and I still wouldn't feel like it was enough. They're absolutely one of my top 5 favorite bands of all time. And so obviously, no matter what they're going to throw at me, I'm going to love it, but I'm also going to want more. But either way, Clutch came out, they did, 11, 12 songs, a lot of it from their new album, Psychic Warfare, which doesn't surprise me, and I'm certainly not going to hold it against them because their new album is fantastic, much like, it's kind of a, spiritual successor to Earth Rocker. So, they really, kind of take that, very fun, very rock, hard rock sound that they, established with Earth Rocker, because there was a shift in, their sound a little bit with Strange Cousins from the West, and they kind of changed it with Earth Rocker again. But either way, I mean, Clutch has, changed their sound so many times, and yet that essentialness, that core of who Clutch is, has never changed. They are still the same amazing band they were back in the early 90s when they first, started, when they first came out with their first album. So they opened up with Who Wants to Rock right off a Jam Room, just a good way to kind of like get the crowd like, who wants to rock? Who's ready for this? Excellent, excellent way to start the show, I believe. And yeah, I absolutely was, anything Clutch does, I'm just like ready for it. Now here was what was really cool about their set, even though most of their set was from Psychic Warfare. They played like, they played X-Ray Visions, they played, Sucker for the Witch, A Quick Death in Texas. So, I mean, they played a few of these songs off their new album, but when they opened up with Who Wants to Rock, but then they jumped into Here's a Deep Cut, and it was awesome that they did this. They played The House That Peter Built off of their self-titled Clutch album, which I thought was really cool because, like, X-Ray Vision seems like, off of Psychic Warfare, seems like the song that when you're ready to get people into it, you just start with that song. But the fact that they start with The House That Peter Built, that was awesome. I was so stoked that they did that. But then they went into X-Ray Vision. So they played Firebird, Decapitation Blues. So they right off the bat, they jumped into a few of their Psychic Warfare tracks. And then the one I was so hoping they would play. There's a dozen songs I wish they had played. But the one that I was really hoping, because they have been playing it recently at more shows, I was really hoping we'd get it, and we did. The Soap Makers off of The Elephant Riders. That song is just, that is like vintage Clutch. That is vintage, like that sound that they have of just like, they can do so many different things in one song. And this one, they even gave it an extended guitar solo, which was pretty awesome. But yeah, hearing the Soap Makers live, that hit the spot. Because it's just one of those like fun, The Elephant Riders is one of those albums it's so quintessentially Clutch, and any song off there would be perfect, but just to hear the Soap Makers, the only other one that I think off that album that I would love to hear him play is maybe Wishbone, would be another just like fun Clutch song for them to play. So that was really awesome to hear the Soap Makers. They played Sea of Destruction, which is pretty cool. That's one of those like, rare unreleased tracks off of Slow Hold of China. Noble Savage, Sucker for the Witch. They, knocked out a few more of the songs from Psychic Warfare. And then the last time I saw Clutch was here at Red Rocks again last year. They were with Mastodon. And, they played a few of these songs as well, but the one that they did not play last year that I was really hoping they would this year was Space Grass. It's obviously another one of those vintage Clutch songs. That was the one that kind of launched them into notoriety, was Space Grass. And so to hear them play it, and they actually brought Pepper Keenan out to help with the guitar work on that, was just awesome. That song is so much, it has such great lyrics. That Clutch has some of the best lyrics of any band ever. Just, that's what they do. And Space Grass is one of those that, has those iconic, lyrics, like specifically, Jesus on the dashboard, and it's just such a fun song. And you could tell the crowd was just, loving it. And the crowd was, really getting into it at this point. Hearing Space Grass was just, an excellent way to kind of, top off the, the old school Clutch. They didn't, unfortunately their set only lasted a couple more songs after that, but that was just kind of the way to be like, remember us, we're here. It was just really, really awesome to hear them play Space Grass, because I didn't hear it play it last time, and that was, it's a little bit disappointing last year, but now that they played it this year, so all I'm missing is Escape from the Prison Planet, and I'm good. In fact, if they just went and did the Clutch self-titled and just played that entire album, I would probably die happy, very happy, because that album that's Clutch. But then they ended with a quick Death in Texas and The Wolfman Kindly Request, which is actually like when I think of like songs to end on, that one actually was a pretty badass one to go out on. Just because, it was the last song on Earth Rocker, so it closed out an album, but to close out the show on that, it's just kind of a great way to, say, party's over, we gotta go. That's, it's a great way. So, yeah, Clutch, every time I see them, I'm just totally stoked, and, I leave very happy to hear, what they bring. Because it's always different, but it's always, Clutch. And they're not super showy, it's just, they come out, they do their business, they come out to rock, and that's exactly what they did last night at Red Rocks. So here's a clip from that as well. I can't say enough things about Clutch. They are really one of my favorite bands, and so anytime I get to see them, it's an absolute treat. I just hope they can come through here next time as a headliner and get a little bit longer set. So check out this clip.
Story.
All right. The main attraction of this was Lamb of God, obviously. Which, I mean, it's interesting because you see the crowd and you got a pretty good mix of like older and younger, and you can tell who's on which side. And that's not to say that they don't like the other bands, but there's definitely people who are there for, you know, COC and Clutch, and then there's definitely people who are there for Lamb of God. I was there for both or for all of them because, you know, Clutch and Lamb of God, two of my favorites. I haven't seen Lamb of God since, you know, the mid 2000s, so it's, you know, they've released a lot of stuff since the last time I've seen them, but every time I see them, they bring so much intensity to their set. And you know, I was really worried, you know, when Randy Blythe was in jail, you know, that something might happen, you know, not just for the band's sake, but also for him personally. And so it was good to see, you know, he was able to, you know, make it through that situation. But, you know, they're back and they are just as, you know, fiery and energetic as they were back, you know, when, you know, the last time I saw them. So let's jump into what they played. Walk With Me in Hell, that was, you know, the way that they opened it up, which is, it's one of those songs that, you know, it's an anthem for the band. You know, there's like every band has some songs that, you know, people know, and that's like, it's a good way to either end on or start on. So in this case, starting with Walk With Me in Hell was a great way to like get the band fired up, get them ready for this, you know, show. So there you go. And then they jump right into my favorite Lamb of God song. So I was already very happy with this show because they jump right into Ruin off of As the Palaces Burn. That's definitely my favorite Lamb of God song, just because of how aggressive and also, you know, the changes in that song, you know, the dynamic aspect of that song. It's just so raw and awesome. And for them to, you know, jump right into that was perfect. It was so awesome. Now they put out an album last year. It's called, you know, Seven Strum und Drang. So we knew that we were going to get a few of those songs here, which, you know, obviously, you know, I'm not opposed to that because I certainly enjoy that album. And they were some good ones. So, and they gave us a couple of good ones right off the bat. Still Echoes, and 512. Those two were definitely two of my favorites from the album. So, to hear those, you know, back to back was a great was a nice little you know, that was a nice, way to kind of get the show going. And at this point, my neck is already hurting because I'm headbanging like crazy. Lamb of God they just emanate the energy, and so yeah, I definitely was headbanging a lot during this set. Which, can you blame me? Although it might have been during like either this set, either 512 or during the next one, Ghost Walking. Couldn't remember which, but there was a dude who was like 2 rows behind me who decided he wanted to do some crowd surfing. So he decided, and if you don't know Red Rocks is basically tiered. So, you've got row, 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 and each row is about 5 feet, maybe 4 feet wide. So for a dude to jump from one row to another and hoping somebody would catch him wasn't exactly the smartest move, and it ended exactly as you would expect it. He landed face first on the concrete. So, but I gotta give the guy credit for at least trying. And that's the one big criticism I have of this show, but I'll get to that at the end. So they played Ghost Walking, and then they jumped into Now You've Got Something to Die For. Ashes of the Wake is one of my, it's like, it's really hard for me to say what my favorite Lamb of God album is, because I want to say As the Palaces Burn, but, Ashes of the Wake has so many good songs on it. Same thing with Sacrament. It's really hard for me to choose one, although I probably still will say As the Palaces Burn. But when they play Now You've Got Something to Die For, that's just one, it's so energetic, it's so good, and they dedicate it to the troops and all that. It just everybody is ready when they hear that song. It's just so perfect, so awesome to hear that. Then came my surprises, and these were the ones, and this might have been my favorite, favorite song of Lamb of God for the night was the fact that they played Descending off of Sacrament. That was a surprise and a pleasant one, because that's a song that gets into my head so often. It's just like out of nowhere I just start thinking of Descending, because it's that, that awesome, like, dark Lamb of God song that just, it has such powerful riffs, and it just so, it just gets into your soul. So for them to play Descending was awesome. Absolutely awesome. And then they followed that right up with The Faded Line, right off of Ashes of the Wake. Another song that, that the riff of The Faded Line is one of those that can get in your head so easily, And, I just can't say enough about, the set that they played. And it's not because, a lot of the songs came from Ashes of the Wake and Sacrament. I think they played 4 off of Sacrament and 3 off of Ashes of the Wake, and then 3 off of Sturm und Drang. Like, that right there shows you that even though they're in support of their new album, they know what gets the fans riled up, and that is songs like The Faded Line, like Descending, Now You've Got Something to Die For, Black and the Cursed Sun. That was another one that was extremely surprising for me to hear. They played Anthropoid off of the new album, which was pretty cool. Set to Fail off of Wrath, which is an album that's probably one of my least favorite Lamb of God albums. But, going back and listening to it again, it's, it kind of reminds me of like, this is Lamb of God kind of before they had, an epiphany, before Randy's issues and stuff like that. So they were still, riding the, the high of Sacrament, and, they kind of went into Wrath, which was good, but, not my favorite album. But it was definitely, to play Set to Fail, it's kind of, that was actually their send-off, before the encore. And it, again, makes me question, do we even need encores anymore? Because, they ended that song and then, went dark, and then they came back, after a couple minutes to do the encore. It's like, well, it's anymore an encore is just, it's a break before the last couple songs, but it was still cool to hear. Then they played Vigil, which was another surprise off of As the Palaces Burn, song I absolutely love. It's one of those great, way to end an album, but also just because it's another one of those classic Lamb of God songs that has so many elements in it. It has, the, kind of sludgy, groove metal elements, and then it jumps right into something a little bit more thrashy and all that, so which is really cool. Now, you get to the end of the night, and you're saying, okay, there's 2 songs that they have not played, that if they don't play, it is not a Lamb of God set. Now, it's unfortunate that you got to pigeonhole somebody into that, but at the same time, you cannot get away from Lamb of God set without playing Laid to Rest and Redneck, which is exactly what they did to end the show. Laid to Rest, the opening song off of Ashes of the Wake, which is, I can't say enough great things about that song. When it first came out, was just like such a revelation, and made Lamb of God one of my favorite bands because of just how awesome it is. And people were just losing their shit during this song, which was absolutely awesome. And of course, then they end with Redneck, and that is the way to send out the night, is with Redneck. It's this is why I love metal so much, is because of bands like Lamb of God, who just bring so much energy, and they have such a deep library too that they can pull from all these songs. And the people just, I mean, the reaction to it was, there was a lot of love, a lot of just, unbridled, furious joy to hear Lamb of God do this. And to do it at Red Rocks, I mean, the disadvantage of playing any show at Red Rocks that is a metal show is that you can't get like you can't really feed the energy of the crowd as much, because you're on these you're basically on this tiered seating structure. And if somebody tries to start a mosh pit or do anything like that, somebody's going to get hurt, like the dude who decided to jump face first into the concrete. Bless the guy, but probably not the smartest thing to do. But I mean, that's what Red Rocks is, unfortunately, is it doesn't have that like kind of mosh pit area to do. But at the same time, it's also one of the most beautiful venues in Colorado. It's certainly one of the most beautiful venues I've ever seen for music. And it's that time of year when it's warm outside, stars are out, and to hear music at Red Rocks, it's a gorgeous setting. Maybe not conducive for metal, but I'm not going to complain, because the set itself was amazing. Lamb of God crushed it. Clutch nailed it. Corrosion of Conformity brought the pain. It was absolutely a great setup, and just a fascinating lineup to have. I was absolutely thrilled when I saw that the lineup was these three bands, and I wasn't disappointed. I walked away feeling the same amount of excitement, just had a little bit more adrenaline at the end of the night, because at that point I had listened to Lamb of God for an hour and a half, just absolutely crushing it. So I'm going to go out on a few clips from the night. So that is my review of the concert last night, because I was there last night seeing Corrosion of Conformity, Clutch, and Lamb of God at Red Rocks. I'll see you guys next time, and it will be pretty soon. So take it easy.